decided to make a sensory board for my grandson Theo, who has autism, and so I went around to the dollar store, a tile shop, Home Depot, and I got all kinds of things to put on his sensory board, all things that you can feel and touch that gives different sensories. Brush, Superman, this bottle you can squeeze. And what I'm thinking is that I'm going to take all of these things and glue them onto the board, and then I'm just gonna pour a whole bunch of epoxy down onto the board so that he can't take any of them off. And so my sister came to help, and here we are stirring the epoxy. You put, equal parts together, and you follow the instructions on the epoxy. And so we needed to stir this for 6 minutes. And so we took turns and we stirred the epoxy for the exact amount of time that we were supposed to do it for, 6 minutes. And then I glued some of the objects on the board. All the objects that are on the board right now I had glued on, and then we're planning on just setting everything on later. It said to start in the middle, so I started in the middle, and then we just poured it all around, and Julie with the painter's stick just moved the epoxy around the different objects. Now underneath those Legos, I glued some cardboard, a piece of cardboard, so that it would have room for the epoxy to not go up and over the Lego pieces. Of course it did in some spots, but that's okay. So we just took our time and kept pouring onto the board. I went right over the letters so that they would be all glossy and cute. That's a little light that you can press and it turns on, that over there to the right. And I cut the football in half and glued it down. Those little eyes are just from like Micheals. I thought they were really cute, mostly because they you can touch them and they go in and out. Those are penny tiles I got from Home Depot, and I did glue those down. Later I'm going to put those penny tiles all the way around the outside edge of the sensory board. And I think if I was to do it over again, I would have glued those down first. It doesn't make a huge difference, but I think it just would have been a little bit easier. I was a little bit worried about getting the epoxy on top of them, but they did fine with the epoxy on top. So I think I would glue those first. Here we are, a little bit faster motion. Get all the epoxy out because it's expensive. So I did get the gallon at Lowe's because they had it in stock. I did find it a little bit less money on Amazon, but I didn't have the time to wait for it to come. So with gloves, you need to wear gloves when you do this. I smeared it around on the letters so that they'd be nice and shiny and have some texture themselves. Here we are putting the little tiles all the way around the outside edge. Oh, and first I had bought this board at Hobby Lobby. It's a chalkboard, and the first thing I did was I sealed around the edges so that the epoxy would not seep through out the edges. I did it with a bathroom caulking so it's waterproof. And I used white, which was dumb. I should have used a clear, but I didn't notice that it was white when I bought it. So that's okay. I was gonna put the tiles down anyways, so I think it covers it up just fine. But yes, you need to put some sealer around the edge so that the epoxy doesn't just run out onto your table. We are doing it on some tablecloths, the vinyl tablecloths, so that if it does come out, it's not on my table. And we also put it on the floor so that it wouldn't, get on the tile. Here's Julie's placing all of the objects on the board that we had ready to go. Most of these objects I found at the dollar store. The purple things is a noodle. That's one of those swim noodles, and I just cut it and stuck it on there. That's the only thing I'm kind of concerned about that he can pick off, but that's okay. And here we got a bunch of beads, little star beads at Micheals, and also some circle beads. And these are just to brighten up the board and make it look all cute. I'm pretty sure they're going to be down into the epoxy, so the texture is not really, well, except for the big round beads, they stick up. And so cute, it just brightens up the whole board. I played around with all kinds of different designs that I wanted first before we did the whole thing, but I thought the face was a good idea. To make it look a little bit more thought out and a purpose to the design. Yeah. And these are all totally just sensory. My grandson will love just all the sensory. He's not really ready for things that you can do, like zippers and things like that. So this is more along his alley. So you would want to take into account where your child is and what kinds of things they like to do and touch and feel. But those mirrors, we got the epoxy on top of them, and actually it turned out just fine because you can still see in the mirror. Oh, and we put the epoxy around the edges on the wood because we had spilled some on it anyways, and so we just smeared it all the way around on the edges so that it would have a nice shiny finish, and that turned out really good. And there it is, it's all finished. There's my sister and I. And all the kids loved it. These are kids that don't have autism, and they loved it too.